The current humanitarian crisis in Venezuela is the worst ever in Western Hemisphere history. Late President Hugo Chavez founded the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, which took control of government institutions such as the Supreme Court, the judiciary, and the Electoral Council. In 2013, Chavez's right-hand man, Nicolas Maduro, became the president of Venezuela. Under Maduro's rule, the economy collapsed. It's been down about 75% since his election. There is a complete humanitarian crisis and rampant violence and crime throughout the streets. There are shortages widespread of food, water, and medical supplies. COVID-19 is only causing citizens to go further into poverty and illness. 6 million have fled the country. These people are being trafficked and killed trying to escape. How does this affect us? The criminal activity that stems from Maduro's regime boasts crime around the world: drug trafficking and smuggling, false oil sales, financial crimes, and even fake building projects. He stays in power through terrible human rights violations, including disappearances, executions, torture, and much more. There is corruption amongst officials, and they are allies with terrorist organizations. At one point, 8 U.S. citizens were being held hostage amongst hundreds of other prisoners. Here we have pictures of Venezuelans protesting, fleeing the country, and then on the right we have a map that shows a distribution of refugees amongst the surrounding countries. We also have a quote from a Venezuelan refugee in Ecuador that reads, "We walked for 11 days and had to sleep outside. We left because they threatened to kill us. My brother was killed. They almost killed me." Right underneath we have a sign that says, "We say no to dictatorship. SOS Venezuela." In December of 2016, the opposition won the majority in the National Assembly, making legislation Maduro's nightmare. In 2018, Maduro was re-elected as president of Venezuela. However, many knew that the poll was rigged. Juan Guaido stepped in and declared himself president in 2018. He was the leader of the National Assembly, and he used a clause in the Venezuelan Constitution that allowed for somebody to step in as president when there was no sitting president recognized. Over 50 countries began to recognize Guaido as the country's new president, including the United States. The issue, however, was that the Venezuelan military is continuing to side with Maduro. This is proving to be a huge obstacle in transferring power. President Biden's take. President Biden has prior experience handling this issue from when he was vice president a couple terms prior. He and President Obama negotiated aid packages and trade deals with Central America. Because of this, he believes that he has great insight into Latin American affairs. He also believes that former President Donald Trump handled the crisis terribly, on top of severing U.S. ties with other hemispheres. President Trump continuously threatened military intervention in Venezuela and would not accept more Venezuelan refugees into the United States due to his strict immigration agenda. Before his election, Biden stated that he believed Maduro to be a tyrant. He proposed increased sanctions, humanitarian aid for both Venezuelans and countries taking refugees, and new elections and the release of political prisoners. My policy recommendation is that first, we must stop offering exemptions to sanctions. By offering exemptions such as shipments of petroleum to Venezuela, our position of being tough and aggressive in terms of sanctions is becoming undermined. We must place increased pressure on the entire Maduro regime. We must use our relations to encourage other big powers such as our European allies to also impose strict sanctions on the regime. We must stop attempting to negotiate with Maduro. Many have tried time and time again to no avail. It only makes us look weaker, buys Maduro more time, and shows that we legitimize his reign. We must send more aid to our surrounding allies to combat the overflow into their countries and to support them taking on refugees. We could do this through economic means, or we could also do it through tangible supply donations. We should also accept more Venezuelan refugees into the United States. By October of 2021, the U.S. detained 13,504 Venezuelans. By March of 2021, the U.S. granted temporary protected status. This was a step in the right direction, but many Venezuelans are still having issues seeking refuge. We must also create task forces with the job of gaining intel on and working out solutions to stop the narcotics crisis. Critics argue that the U.S. is not the world's police. However, we do have many interests at stake. And overall, as human beings, we have a duty to seek justice in the face of adversity for those who cannot protect themselves.